As so many of us celebrate Thanksgiving with family by feasting or overindulging in food and drink, let's not forget the reality of the origin of this so-called holy day. For our enslavers, colonizers, oppressors, and 500-year-old enemies, Thanksgiving is a celebration of their perceived victory over our ancestors, the indigenous people of North America. As a result of this so-called victory, more than 100 million of our ancestors were killed, and that number continues to increase with each passing year that we live under white authority. They massacred our grandparents, parents, siblings, children, and babies of those that refused to submit to white authority. But some of us, based on a limited understanding as well as a white supremacist and one-sided perspective of history, have said, "Forget them Indians and pass the turkey." This is because some so-called American Indians, especially mixed-blood white Indians, owned slaves, tracked runaway slaves for the white man, and adopted the white man's practice of white and light-skinned supremacy. What many of us so-called African Americans don't know is, when we look in the mirror, we're looking at a reflection of those that we're talking about forgetting. It's a well-known fact that black people didn't have to wait for the slave trade to be brought to America. There is clear evidence that so-called black people have lived in the continental limits of the United States at least 50,000 years. That's 49,500 years before the European is reported to have accidentally discovered America for the second time. As Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad reminded us, everywhere the white man went, the black man and woman was already there to greet him at the shores. So the so-called American Indian Holocaust is, at least partly, associated with the worldwide Black Holocaust. I encourage you to give thanks. But don't allow yourself to be confined to giving thanks on the days your enemy celebrates the murder of your ancestors. The white man's Thanksgiving Day is actually the national day of mourning for our people, indigenous people of North America, that love, honor, and respect our ancestors. Now, some of you like to use astronomy to justify your celebration of white supremacy holidays. That's like a cokehead justifying the use of cocaine because it's derived from the coca plant and the coca plant is natural. Understand that every day of the year has some astronomical significance. Other Negroes will tell you that the historical reason we celebrate Thanksgiving Day is because it marked the end of the growing season, which meant the end of farming. Well, as an urban farmer myself, I can tell you that's just another false justification. Growing seasons vary depending on where you live in the United States. If you live in New York, your growing season will be shorter than someone that lives in South Carolina. The growing season that's in Louisiana will be much longer than New York. The northern white man didn't end slavery before the southern white man for any moral reason. He ended slavery in the North because the long harsh winters made slavery an economic burden. The South had shorter mild winters so the crackers and others that practiced slavery could make a greater profit. Just like all other areas dominated by white supremacy, we don't celebrate these holidays because of any scientific or spiritual reason that you can come up with. You celebrate these holidays when the white man says it's okay to celebrate and observe. Then we use some fabricated fact to justify our actions. So, just as we told you on Halloween, if you're going to celebrate your enemy's holidays, don't use science to justify it. Just admit that, like a dope fiend, you just can't help yourself. Just admit that you are addicted to white supremacy slave culture. This article was written by Da. Ku. Akabo wa Akatu.